Welcome back to the Cauldron, lovelies. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your presence in this space. This morning, I invite you to come spend some time with me as I sit on my deck and enjoy a few quiet moments, just sitting in this beautiful summer energy. And if you're driving, don't worry. Listen along for now. This little practice will be waiting for you when you have a quiet moment of your own. It's a warm summer day, and one of my favorite ways to start the day is sitting outside, enjoying all the gifts that nature has offered us. I don't always have the opportunity to have these moments, but when I do, I lean into them wholeheartedly. Come, sit down, and take a slow, intentional breath. Close your eyes. Notice how the sun feels on your skin. Warm, gentle, not asking anything of you except to just be here. Notice the breeze as it brushes across your face. Maybe it carries the scent of freshly cut grass, flowers blooming nearby, or the earth still holding on to last night's rain. Listen to the birds chattering away as they fight for their space on the feeder. Maybe you hear a wind chime somewhere in the distance, or a lawnmower, or the quiet sounds of a neighborhood beginning another summer morning. Slowly open your eyes and notice how that same breeze seems to invite the tree branches and the leaves to dance together. As you sit here, slowly taking it all in, notice how it makes you feel. Maybe you notice your breathing has slowed. Where do you feel that in your body? Maybe your shoulders have softened, or your jaw isn't quite as tense as it was a few moments ago. Maybe you simply feel a little more grounded than you did when we first sat down together. Whatever you're noticing, just sit with it. These moments matter to me now because it took me a long time to understand them. Years ago, when I first started practicing witchcraft, I thought it was just learning how to work with magic. And let's be honest, television definitely played a role in that. I've shared before that my first exposure to witchcraft was Bewitched. I loved it. Then came Charmed. Loved that even more. And then there's movies like Practical Magic. Definitely a vibe. Am I right? Midnight Margaritas, anyone? Listen, nobody wants to be able to clean the house with a wave of a hand or a wiggle of the nose more than I do. I think a lot of us come to the craft with ideas like that. I was captivated by the same things a lot of us are, because there is just something about watching powerful witches move through the world with that kind of magic that stirs something inside of us. Maybe that's the first thing we ever notice. Not the magic itself, but our own response to it. I believe these types of stories stay with us because they help us see something within ourselves. For some of us, it's recognition. For others, it feels like coming home. And maybe it's both. I don't think I could have explained it back then. I just knew that something inside of me kept saying, yes. And without actually realizing it, those stories began shaping the way I moved through the world. They showed me a woman who trusted herself, the type of woman who knew where she ended and the rest of the world began. Someone who could stand firmly in who she was without needing permission from anyone. As time went by, my practice would teach me that being a witch was more than just how I showed up in the world. It was how I lived in relationship to the world that mattered too. That relationship changes the way you see everything. You might find yourself noticing what is and recognizing what has always been. Many years ago, I met a woman whose way of life would one day teach me so many things about myself and my practice. I was just too young to recognize it at the time. I was probably 4 or 5 years old when I met Anna. She was this eccentric old woman who lived across the street from the house I grew up in. Her house was exactly what you'd imagine a witch's cottage might look like: flowers climbing up the fence, a huge vegetable garden that stretched from one end of the property to the other. The house itself was a little worn and weathered, but it had this beautiful lived in energy. I spent a few mornings a week with her while my mother was at work. She made us mint tea using one of those old whistling kettles on the stove. I can still hear that kettle if I close my eyes. It always seemed to begin with that softest little whistle before growing louder and louder until Anna would quietly stand up, lift it from the burner, and pour 2 cups of tea. I love the way that tea tasted with a little bit of milk and sugar. I don't remember the conversations we had around that kitchen table, but I know I liked being there. What I do remember are the old jars and the coffee cans. They look like they'd been there forever. Most of them held things she'd grown in her garden, except for one. She kept her money in that one. I don't know why that's one of the things I remember, but I do. But that garden, that's probably the thing I remember the most. No one else in the neighborhood had a garden like Anna's. It literally stretched from one side of the property to the other. She grew corn and tomatoes and string beans, among so many other things. As a little girl, I remember thinking she could grow just about anything. And if I'm being honest, 53-year-old me is still just a little jealous. I remember thinking how lucky she was that she could have corn on the cob whenever she wanted. Sometimes she'd even let me take some home with me. Such fond memories of Anna. Now, the other day, when I started writing this podcast episode, I was sitting on my deck drinking my coffee and thinking about how I wanted to talk about seeing the world through the eyes of a witch. As I started jotting down some notes, I noticed the faint scent of honeysuckle in the breeze. And suddenly, Anna was all I could think about. Not just Anna, her kitchen, the whistle of that kettle, the taste of that mint tea with that little bit of milk and sugar, the jars, the coffee cans, her garden. It's incredible how something as simple as a scent can carry an entire person back into our lives. As those memories returned, something else surfaced with them. For the first time, I wasn't looking at those memories through the eyes of a little girl. I was looking at them through the eyes of a witch. And somewhere in the middle of remembering her, I found myself thinking, could it be? Seriously? Could Anna have been a witch? Oh my God, I think Anna was a witch. Maybe that's why all the kids in the neighborhood were afraid of her. I wasn't, but maybe that's why they were. Now, do I know with 100% certainty that Anna was practicing witchcraft? Well, no. But does the way she lived have all the hallmarks of a granny witch? You bet your witchy booty it does. She grew and harvested her own food. She saved almost everything that could be saved. Nothing ever seemed to go to waste. She would welcome people into her kitchen, make them a cup of tea, and somehow make them feel like they belong there. Looking back now, I don't think what I recognized was a label. I recognized that way of living. And maybe, just maybe, she recognized something in me that I wasn't aware of. Not yet, anyway. I've often wondered, how many Annas have we all walked past in our lives? People whose lives quietly shaped us long before we had the words to understand why. And now, through the eyes of a witch, memories that once felt ordinary don't feel quite ordinary anymore. Because when we see life through the eyes of a witch, we begin to realize that magic has never been confined to altars or spell books. It's been available to us right under our noses this entire time. These days, I find myself looking a little longer and wondering a little more. A ring of mushrooms is enough to make me smile. A crow leaves me wondering what message it might be carrying. I know the moon as the one who illuminates my path. And through the eyes of this witch, the world feels so much more alive. So, the next time you step outside, I hope you'll leave a little room for wonder, and I hope you'll recognize the magic you've been searching for. You might be surprised by what you find. Until next time, stay steady, stay grounded, stay magical. Blessed be.